Welcome to AI, the Artificial Incontinence, where we perform dramatic readings of AI-written slop. Today, I've asked ChatGPT to write me a 5-minute story about a pair of old ladies driving recklessly down the highway. And so we have The Fast and the Furiously Retired. I was doing about 70 on the highway, which in my family is considered both reckless and emotionally irresponsible, when a beige sedan blew past me like it had an appointment with destiny and a coupon that expired in 3 minutes. Not just past me, judged me. The car leaned into the overtake with purpose. I caught a glimpse of the driver, and I felt my soul briefly leave my body. Two old ladies, easily in their late 70s, maybe even early 80s. Hard to tell. Time gets fuzzy when it's wearing a floral blouse and gripping a steering wheel like it owes it money. The driver had white hair, set in a hamlet of hairspray so firm it could deflect hail. Her eyes were locked forward, pupils dilated, jaw clenched. This was not a woman out for a Sunday drive. This was a woman who had decided something. The passenger, her co-pilot in sensible terror, clutched the door handle and was yelling something that did not look like encouragement. They were flying. The sedan rattled as it swerved back into the lane ahead of me, narrowly missing a pickup truck. No turn signal, no apology, just commitment. I slowed down because that's what you do when you see chaos wearing orthopedic shoes. I told myself, they'll exit soon. Old ladies love exits. Exits lead to diners, and diners lead to soup. They did not exit. Instead, they accelerated. The speedometer needle climbed, 80, 85. I was now technically chasing them, not out of aggression, but out of morbid curiosity. I needed to know how this ended. An ambulance? A news story? A sudden realization that bingo starts at 4? The driver swerved around a minivan, leaning onto the horn like it was a musical instrument she'd been practicing since Eisenhower. The passenger turned to look back at me. Her face said, "This was her idea, and also, please remember me." I pulled alongside them. Bad choice. The driver glanced at me with the intensity of someone who has not trusted men since 1963. She mouthed something. I'm pretty sure it was, "Move." Not please, not sir, just move. So I moved. They cut across 3 lanes, narrowly avoiding a state trooper who had been peacefully sipping coffee and rethinking his career. His eyes widened. His hand went to the stereo. I think it means radio. Then he hesitated, because how do you even explain this? "Dispatch, I've got 2 elderly women, possibly possessed, doing 90 in a Buick." I'm curious how the narrator knows what the cop said in his own car. I guess he has a police scanner. I don't know. The very odd narrator perspective here. He seems to know everything, but he's also involved in the story. The ladies took the exit ramp like they were qualifying for something. Okay, that's vague. Tires screamed. I screamed. Somewhere, a church organ played itself. I followed at a safe distance, which in this case was defined as far enough to survive. They blasted through a red light, missing cross traffic by inches. The passenger was now praying. I could see her lips moving. She crossed herself, then crossed her arms, then crossed what looked like a will. She has her will with her in the car. Finally, they skidded into a parking lot. A grocery store, of course. The sedan lurched into a space, crooked and victorious, smoking slightly. I parked a few rows back, just to see if this was real. The driver shut off the engine and exhaled like a war hero. The passenger stepped out, knees shaking, clutching her purse like it had been through something with her. Well, it had been, that ride, and presumably other rides as well. I mean, that purse, it didn't specify if she had just bought that purse. I watched them shuffle towards the automatic doors. As they passed me, I heard the driver say, perfectly calm, "See? I told you we'd make it before the rotisserie chickens were gone." The passenger nodded, pale, but impressed. and they disappeared inside. I sat in my car for a full minute, hands on the wheel, wondering how many laws of physics had just been violated by cardigan energy alone. Then I drove home slowly, carefully, because somewhere out there, those two are still on the road, and they are late for nothing. And now for the sequel. I've asked ChatGPT to write the ladies, Rita and Nancy, drive to the bingo hall where they furiously demand a high-stakes game. Title: Double or Nothing, Dot. I'm not sure if dot is a bingo term that I just don't know, or if that's some weird hallucination. But double or nothing, Dot. I ran into Rita and Nancy again 3 weeks later, which statistically means they're a recurring event and should be named by the National Weather Service. This time it was in the parking lot of St. Bartholomew's Bingo Hall, a low concrete building that smelled like lemon cleaner, coffee, and competitive despair. I'd come home for a charity night, lured in by the promise of snacks and the lie that bingo is relaxing. I was wrong. Their beige sedan arrived first. It screamed into the lot sideways, tires chirping, landing across 2 spaces like punctuation. The engine cut. Silence fell. Somewhere, a pigeon reconsidered its life choices. Rita emerged from the driver's seat, adjusting her sunglasses. Nancy followed, gripping her purse the way a knight grips a shield. They walked towards the entrance with synchronized fury, their sensible shoes clapping the pavement like a countdown. Inside, the hall was calm. Too calm. Rows of folding tables, plastic daubers in obedient colors. The caller's microphone hummed softly, unaware. Rita scanned the room, and her eyes narrowed. "Where's the board with the numbers that matter?" she asked the volunteer at the door, a college kid named Tyler, who had never faced consequences like this. Tyler blinked. Ma'am?" Nancy leaned in. "We're not here for leisure." Rita planted both hands on the table nearest to the entrance. "What's the buy-in?" A ripple moved through the room. People looked up from their cards. One woman clutched her lucky troll doll. "It's $5 per card," Tyler said, voice cracking. Rita laughed once. It echoed. "That's adorable." Nancy unzipped her purse. Coins spilled out. Bills. A checkbook. A laminated photo of someone who had definitely been wronged before. "We want the serious game," Nancy said. "The one people don't talk about." From the back, a voice croaked. "She means the late game." Everyone froze. Rita smiled. "Good. Bring it forward." The caller, a man named Ed, who had been calling bingo since disco was a rumor, hesitated. Since disco was a rumor? Was there a time when people were just not sure if it existed or not? Then he sighed, and he flipped the sign behind him. "High stakes," it read. The daubers changed hands. The air thickened. Someone turned off the fan. Rita and Nancy took their seats, front and center. Rita cracked her knuckles. Nancy lined up her chips with military precision. The first number rang out. "B7! Rita marked it instantly. Nancy nodded. No wasted motion. Around them, people fell behind. Cards trembled. Daubers squeaked in panic. "I-29! Nancy inhaled sharply. "That's the one you like." Rita smirked. "It knows me." The game accelerated. Ed's voice grew tense. Numbers flew. Sweat appeared on foreheads that had not known stress since Nixon. And then it happened. "068! Rita slammed her dauber down. "Bingo!" Gasps. A chair fell over. Someone whispered a prayer that had been retired. Ed leaned forward. "Verification." Nancy stood, towering. You questioning her integrity? Ed sat back down. The pot slid across the table. Rita counted it once, twice, and nodded. Again, she said. They played until the room thinned, until the coffee ran out, until fate itself asked for a break. At last, Rita stood, victorious, pockets heavier, eyes brighter. Nancy smiled, finally relaxed. Told you this town had something left. They walked out together, calm now, satisfied. As the sedan roared away, I realized something chilling. They weren't reckless. They were focused. And somewhere, another bingo hall was about to learn that numbers are never just numbers when Rita and Nancy are in the room. For a third part of this story, I've given it the prompt, now they go to Vegas. They clean up and leave as millionaires. Title, Rita and Nancy, jackpot or bust. I knew it was only a matter of time before Rita and Nancy went to Vegas. You don't walk out of a bingo hall with a 5-figure payout, 3 stunned volunteers, and a handwritten note banning you from competitive Tuesdays without eventually setting your sights on the neon desert. That's just physics. They didn't fly to Vegas. Rita doesn't trust planes because, and I quote, the sky has no brakes. They drove. I'm going to use that in the future. The sky has no brakes. The same beige sedan, the same mysterious dent that appears to move locations. Ooh, it's a 4D vehicle. The cruise control's still broken, which Nancy claims is a blessing in disguise because it keeps Rita spiritually alert. By the time they crossed into Nevada, the car smelled like beef jerky, peppermint, and raw confidence. I guess that's better than raw beef jerky and confident peppermint? I don't know. Rita slammed the accelerator as the Vegas skyline appeared, glittering like a mirage made of debt and regret. That city thinks it's tough, she said. Nancy adjusted her sunglasses. We survived bingo with Dot Henshaw. Vegas doesn't stand a chance. Oh, maybe Dot was the name of, like, the bingo caller or something? I don't know. It didn't specify in the previous story. We need to expand on this whole universe, the Rita and Nancy expanded universe. We need TV shows. We need movies. We need action figures. We need models of the beige sedan. I think there's a few $1 million in this idea. I mean, this is clearly the best story that's ever been told. Thank you, ChatGPT. Anyway, they survived bingo with Dot Henshaw. Vegas doesn't stand a chance. They checked into a casino so large it had its own weather. Oh, God. The bellhop offered to take their bags. Rita stared at him like he just challenged her to a duel. We'll carry our own luggage, she said. We didn't raise weak bones. I didn't realize you raise your bones. Within minutes, they had a plan. Not written down, not discussed. It just formed between them like a storm system. Well, that's because the casino has its own weather. They split up. Nancy went straight to the slots. Not the flashy ones, the old ones. The kind with sticky buttons and a faint smell of disappointment. She patted one affectionately. You've been ignored, she whispered, but I see you. Rita headed to the blackjack tables, where she immediately informed the dealer she would not be hit on vibes alone, and demanded a reshuffle because the cards felt smug. Security took notes. Yeah, I don't know. I've never played tables at any casino, but I don't think you can just demand that the dealer reshuffles. I don't actually know, though. I feel like they would have their own system. I don't know. I've never actually played tables at a casino because I'm too chicken and cheap. Well, I haven't lost much money. Anyway, security took notes. Nancy, meanwhile, was annihilating the slots. Not wildly pulling levers, but studying them, timing the pauses, listening to the machine like it might confess something. Coins started pouring out, then vouchers, then confused looks from tourists who had been losing money responsibly for hours. Is that responsible? I don't think that's responsible. And also, how is she winning because she's not pulling the levers, she's just studying? Whose money did she bet with? Is she just walking up to other people's slot machines and just taking their winnings? I don't understand what Nancy's doing here, but there seems to be some shenanigans. Where is security? Rita wasn't doing badly either. She stared down the dealer like he owned her money personally. Like he owed her money personally. He may own her money by the end of this. She won hands that she shouldn't have. She refused insurance on principle. Is insurance a thing in casinos? She lectured a man named Steve about probability until he left the table both poorer and wiser. By noon, they reconvened at the buffet to compare notes. Nancy slid a stack of vouchers across the table, and Rita set down a pile of chips with a sound like authority. They nodded. Next level, Nancy said. They moved to craps. No one knows how Rita learned craps. Some say she memorized the table overnight. Others believe she intimidated the dice into compliance. All I know is that she rolled like the universe was afraid to tell her no. People gathered. Cheering began. Someone started filming. A man in a visor yelled, "Let her cook!" Nancy managed the bankroll with surgical precision. Every win reinvested, every loss dismissed as the cost of momentum. By evening, casino management had noticed. A man in a suit approached them, smiling too hard, offering drinks, asking how long they were staying. Rita smiled back. Long enough. They escalated again. High-limit tables, private rooms, stakes so high the air felt thin. I don't think ChatGPT quite understands the metaphor of high stakes. The stakes aren't literally high, like at the top of a mountain. You can't have stakes so high the air is thin. Maybe that's a sad attempt at a metaphor. Nancy signed paperwork without reading it. Rita asked if the pen was lucky. By midnight, they were unstoppable. Blackjack, roulette, a brief but devastating encounter with baccarat. Baccarat? Dealers rotated out like relief pitchers. The pit boss aged visibly. What's a pit boss? The money piled up in quiet, alarming qualities. And finally, at 2:17 a.m., Rita stood up. That's enough, she said. Nancy blinked. Enough? Rita nodded. If we stay, we get sloppy. If we leave, we win. They cashed out. Not dramatically, no yelling, no champagne, just two elderly women calmly collecting an amount of money that causes financial advisors to inhale sharply. The cashier asked how they wanted it. However makes you nervous, Nancy said. They packed up, declined every comp, and walked out into the warm desert night. By sunrise, they were already on the highway, Vegas shrinking behind them. Nancy looked at the duffel bag full of paperwork and smiled. Millionaires. Rita squinted at the road. Good. Gas is getting expensive. And just like that, they drove on, leaving Vegas shaken, humbled, and quietly relieved they might never come back. And now for the thrilling conclusion, I've asked ChatGPT to write the final part of the story. They buy a swanky house in Orlando and tell Mickey Mouse, this is our town now. Finale. This is our town now. Well, at least it got creative with the title. I knew the ladies had officially crossed into legend status the moment I saw the house. It sat in Orlando like it had been personally designed by money that didn't know when to stop. White columns, a pool shaped like something that definitely violated zoning laws. Palm trees that looked flown in first class. The driveway curved dramatically for no practical reason except to let vehicles arrive with confidence. And there, stepping out of a jet black town car, were Rita and Nancy. Rita wore sunglasses big enough to have their own opinions. I love the metaphors that it comes up. The casino big enough to have its own weather, and sunglasses big enough to have their own opinions. Is there a certain size threshold where you cannot have opinions? Like, I don't know, like a person under 50 pounds isn't allowed to have opinions. Does that mean that like someone who's like a lot bigger has the most important opinions? I need, where's the size to opinion ratio? Anyway, her sunglasses were big enough to have their own opinions. Nancy had a silk scarf tied just loose enough to suggest she might race a yacht later. Between them was an energy I can only describe as recently became millionaires and immediately forgot how blinking works. They didn't marvel at the house. They didn't gasp. Rita glanced at it, nodded once, and said, "It'll do." Nancy squinted. "Pool's a little small." "It's Florida," Rita said. "We'll add another." This, I realized, was not a vacation home. This was a declaration. They moved in like conquering heroes. Furniture arrived by the truckload. Rita demanded a poker table for the dining room, in case dinner gets boring. Nancy converted the guest bedroom into what she called the thinking room, which contained nothing but a recliner, a mini fridge, and stacks of bingo cards framed like war medals. Within a week, the neighborhood had adjusted its expectations. Golf carts slowed when passing the house. Delivery drivers straightened their posture. Somewhere, a homeowners association trembled without knowing why. But Orlando, as it turns out, already had a ruler. Mickey Mouse. The ladies encountered him on a warm afternoon near one of the parks, where music floated through the air and joy was carefully scheduled every 15 minutes. Mickey stood there waving, smiling with the confidence of someone who believed, incorrectly, that this was still his town. Rita stopped walking. Nancy stopped walking. That's when I knew things were about to change. They approached Mickey the way seasoned gamblers approach a table, calm, unafraid, and already certain of the outcome. Mickey waved enthusiastically. Rita removed her sunglasses, and I'm assuming thus her opinions. Nancy folded her arms. "Mickey," Rita said, nodding politely, like they were equals meeting at a summit. Mickey tilted his head and gestured cheerfully. Nancy leaned in just enough to make it clear this wasn't a photo opportunity. "We bought a house," she said. Mickey clapped. "A big one," Rita added. More clapping. "With a pool," Nancy said. Clap, clap. "And a guest wing," Rita continued, "because people visit us now." Mickey froze just slightly. Rita smiled the smile she once used on casino managers. "We just wanted to let you know. This is our town now." There was a pause. A long one. The music kept playing. The sun shone. Somewhere, a churro was dropped. Mickey recovered, of course. He always did. He waved, nodded, and gave a thumbs up that suggested mutual respect mixed with concern. Nancy patted his gloved hand. "You can keep the hats," she said kindly. "We're not monsters." What is that in reference to? They walked away, leaving behind a legend and possibly a shift in municipal power. Back at the house, they toasted with drinks that had umbrellas in them for no reason other than confidence. Rita kicked back in a lounge chair and sighed. "From the highway," she said, "to bingo, to Vegas, to this." Nancy clinked her glass. "Not bad for a Tuesday." Wait, has this all happened in one day? They watched the sunset. They watched the sunset over their pool, the water glowing like it knew it had belonged to them. Somewhere in the distance, fireworks went off, but Rita barely glanced up. Too predictable, she said. Nancy smiled. So what's next? Rita thought for a moment. Then she grinned. Well, she said, I hear space travel's getting affordable. That's when I understood something important. Rita and Nancy weren't done. They would never be. Because once you've driven recklessly down a highway, stared down bingo halls, broken Vegas, and politely informed a global icon that his town has new management, there's nowhere left to go but forward. Fast, together, and entirely unapologetic. The end. I think my biggest question is the narrator. So is this just some guy that saw them on the highway and now has just been following these two old ladies everywhere? Very, very concerned about who this narrator is. I may need to call the ChatGPT police because I think this guy might be a stalker. Anyway, that concludes Rita and Nancy's story.